Hey guys, welcome back to the BuzWeaver channel. And today, of course, as of this recording, it is January 6th, 2022. And of course, the Democrats, we're not going to let any particular crisis or even a demonstration go to waste because, of course, this does mark the 1-year anniversary of the mostly peaceful demonstration at the Capitol, as you may recall. And we are constantly reminded of by the Democrats and the left to sensationalize this to such an extent that it just makes you wonder how people can't recognize the gross exaggerations and gross sensationalizing. Look at some of these headlines that I'm going to read from today. AP News: Biden decries Trump backers, dagger at throat of democracy. Wow, the language, the wording, try to make it sound so menacing. Washington AP: President Joe Biden accused Donald Trump and his supporters of holding a dagger at the throat of democracy in a forceful speech Thursday. I don't know about the forceful part, maybe a bumbling speech, marking the anniversary of the deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol. He warned that though it didn't succeed, the insurrection remains a serious threat to American system of government. How is that possible? The insurrection, as you describe it, is over. It's done. By the way, there's no insurrection at the White House. In case anyone was wondering, there are no camped parties or groups or right-wing groups that are at the White House, just in case anyone was wondering if there were individuals left over there who could be a potential threat to either the Capitol or individuals there. But, of course, the Democrats were wasting no time. But here's the thing that I think is very pivotal, because he is going after Trump supporters. These are Americans, by the way, individuals who supported President Trump. And it isn't limited to just the people that demonstrated at the Capitol. This is an attack, the way the Democrats like to describe any sort of attack in this generalized term, but they don't realize that they are encompassing everyone who supports Donald Trump, because it says Donald Trump and his supporters. So if you supported Trump, even in the least amount of way, for example, voting for him because you thought he would benefit America, and he did, then you are technically a Trump supporter. So the Democrats are just outright attacking and insulting people, and we'll get into that in a moment, because on the Friday vlog, we talk about this hyperbolic language, throat of democracy and threat to democracy, interference of democracy. And we'll get into that on a Friday vlog. So make sure you like and subscribe, and make sure that you are all set up to receive the various videos that are released, especially those of you who are on Rumble, Odyssey, and BitChute. Make sure you stay tuned, because we do have the Friday vlog every Friday. From NBC News: Biden condemns lies of defeated former president as an attack on America's soul. Wow. Again, more hyperbolic language, more vitriol. Defeated former president as an attack on America's soul. Wow. He can't accept his loss, the president said, without mentioning his predecessor in a speech at the Capitol. He didn't have to mention his predecessor. It was in the writing. It was in the teleprompter. It was what was written there. It's what the speechwriters had for him. For Joe Biden, who struggles, of course, just to get through simple sentences. And I don't mean that in any derisive way. The man clearly suffers from a cognition issue, and Americans can see it. And it is a concern when you consider that he's supposed to be speaking to foreign leaders and engaging with foreign leaders. And what if he misspeaks with them? What if he says something incorrectly, as he's identified states and countries and people incorrectly? Imagine the particular concern people would have. Washington, in one of the most forceful speeches of his political career, I doubt that, President Joe Biden took sharp aim at former President Donald Trump on Thursday, accusing him of inciting the deadly January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol last year with a web of lies about the 2020 election, because he could not accept his legitimate defeat. And then, of course, on Friday, as I mentioned, I go into far more details about the specifics of what took place between, or what's taking place between, what we're seeing here from the Democrats and the left, constantly bringing up the January 6th incident at best. But here you can see the mainstream media is pulling no punches with its wording to come across with this very forceful kind of contrived way of making Joe Biden look tough is basically what it is. And it's so contrived. It's so sad. It's very similar to watching him and his wife walk on a random beach somewhere with their new dog, their new prop animal. I don't have anything against animals. I don't have anything against dogs. I'm just saying that there's nothing that the Democrats aren't willing to use and manipulate for their cause. And that's what we're seeing here is they're taking the Capitol Hill incident. They're taking, well, I don't want to also dismiss it and play it down because what happened was very serious, but this is mountain climbing, or this is mountain climbing over molehills by the Democrats, and they're always going to take advantages because they apparently don't pay attention to what was happening for several months to over a year with the George Floyd riots. Right, exactly it. Riots, not to mention the continuing problems in San Francisco, particularly in parts of California, with these mass mob type looting and store robberies. So we have to remember that. Then, of course, when it comes to all of this continuation of attacking individuals, we see now Aaron Rodgers is an anti-V, a liar, and dumb as hell. So you see, when the left goes after people, it is their mission to try to convince people, to try to let people know that unless you're part of their team, unless you are part of Team Left, you are dumb. You're ignorant. And that's very similar to what we see when we see things or hear things like, the insurrection at the Capitol, or that there is a threat to democracy. There's a threat to democracy. What all this language means is, when it comes to, say, threat to democracy and stuff, is that people are too dumb to vote Democrat, and they're putting themselves and the country in danger. So don't be dumb. You need to vote Democrat. So sadly, Aaron Rodgers is now a target. And you see they use this phrasing here, anti-V. Of course, I can't say that on YouTube, so I have to say anti-V, which is just another stupid thing of censorship. And all censorship is, in the way the left uses it when it comes to censorship, is to silence anyone who opposes them or presents ideas, concepts, practical, functional, reasonable applications to things when it comes to government that you could use. But if it's not something the Democrats come up with that would be practical, which is usually not, then of course they have to censor everyone to eliminate their competition. So here we see, in trying to prove that he is the smartest man in the NFL, wow, that's just so condescending. Aaron Rodgers ripped the belt of biggest idiots in sports from its previous holder, Kyrie Irving. Now, if you don't know who Kyrie Irving is, he's the basketball player for the New York basketball team there. I think it's the Nets. I'm sorry that I didn't really know it, but it's Kyrie Irving was the basketball player for the New York Nets who refused to get his vaccine. He had the stunning audacity to take a shot at Irving on Friday saying, look, I'm not some sort of anti-V flat earther. And he never attacked Irving. He never attacked Irving. He took his quote out of context. He did say, look, I'm not some sort of anti-V flat earther. He didn't say that about Irving. He didn't say that about him. This was in a podcast that he did, implying that he is smart and vaccinated. See, this is another thing that I just tried to explain to you guys that is so annoying about the Democrats. Now, I'm not annoyed by them trying to annoy me. It's just I want people to understand without any misunderstanding of how the Democrats work from a position that you are too stupid to know how to conduct your life, how to go about life, what kind of opinions to have, what kind of thoughts to have, how to conduct your life without their direct influence. And it's absolutely condescending and it's insulting, and they do this to minorities all the time. It's terribly sad. So they're going after Aaron Rodgers mostly because of his popularity, because like Joe Rogan, who I'm going to show you some information on here in just a second, they're terrified because, see, when it comes to the left, they base everything on popularity. If something is popular, then that means that it's accepted, that people like it, that people welcome it. It's part of the culture. It's part of the ideology and philosophy and worldview of those who must be in the know, the movers and the shakers of our society. But the reality is it all comes down to popularity for the Democrats. And if something isn't popular, they feel terrible about it. And you have someone who's popular but mostly influential, because their biggest fear of Trump is his influence and the ability to influence people. which is why we go back to the original statement of them always saying a threat to democracy, which is just them saying that everyone's too dumb. They voted the wrong way. If you don't vote Democrat, you're just dumb. Aaron Rodgers claims he's a victim of the woke mob and cancel culture. A lot of us are. I would argue that the entire country, our entire culture, is being hijacked by these groups of people that started shortly after President Trump came down the escalator when he announced that he was running for president in 2016. So it wasn't a division created by Trump in the sense that Republicans or conservatives or right-wing or Trump himself created a division. It was the fact that these individuals could not psychologically, emotionally rationalize the fact that President Trump did win. And just like some of the fiery language here we're seeing here, with this right here, defeated former president. Well, we didn't see that kind of language after Hillary Clinton was defeated. We didn't see any of that sort of language after that. We didn't see any of that kind of rhetoric. Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers is painting himself as a victim after it was revealed this week that he got C-19 and is not vaccinated, despite his previous public claim that he was immunized, which he knew he had widely interpreted it as getting the vaccine. So again, a play with language, a play with wording, all in the framing to make Aaron Rodgers look dumb, like a fool, like some troglodyte who doesn't know better because he doesn't listen to Democrats. Because he doesn't listen to the left, he's a dummy. And if you don't listen to the Democrats, you're a dummy too. Because if you don't vote Democrat, you're clearly just dumb. Now, as you can see here, the reason they're so concerned, the reason they're so worried is we look at Aaron Rodgers' Twitter. Now, you might be thinking, well, what's the big deal about Twitter? Why in the world am I be pointing out Twitter? Because this is where they live. This is the ideology, the philosophy, the worldview of the left when it comes to how they deem things popular. Twitter is their echo chamber. This is where they all hang out. This is where they all pat each other on the back to make themselves feel good about the fact that most America doesn't buy into their nonsense. Most Americans don't buy into what they have to sell, particularly when they're selling vaccine mandates like the president. It isn't a lack of education. It isn't a lack of information. It is the fact that people have personal agency. People can make a decision whether to get the vaccine or not. I don't have anything against people who want to get vaccinated. I am not an anti-V. I am an anti-mandate. And we know that this is true because the reason no one has gone after Joe Biden on his statement is because he's not tried to enforce it. Biden has not tried to enforce the fines. Therefore, he can dance around the legality of it by simply not enforcing it. He can talk about it. He can say businesses should do this, schools should do that, people should do this, people should do that. But until he enforces it, it's not going to be a violation of the Constitution. So he is dancing around the issue. Now, of course, we're back on topic of the Capitol. But first, I want to show you real quick what I was talking about here. In quarter 3, 2021 media ratings, I don't know why I said rants, but media ratings here, the Joe Rogan Experience, 11 million viewers. Then you have followed by Tucker Carlson, The 5, Hannity, Fox News primetime average. And you can see here that you're not even close to being in any of the left information until you get down here to Rachel Maddow and then MSNBC primetime and CNN, which are all falling apart. But look at the numbers that Joe Rogan has, and he's just a podcaster, right? He isn't suggesting that he is a journalist or a reporter. He is just a podcaster. He is an announcer for MMA. He's a comedian, and he's a very successful individual who was on various shows in the early 90s. Was it Fear Factor? He was a presenter there on Fear Factor. But this is what they're afraid of. When it comes to Joe Rogan and Aaron Rodgers, they are afraid of the potential influence that these individuals can have, because it's the influence, the social currency, the culture currency that panics the left all the time, because they are so terrified that someone can present an idea, a concept, a practical solution that is far better than they can ever come up with. I don't know why I'm getting so wound up here, and then flabbergasting and flubbing up some of my dictation as I read here. So D.C. medical examiner confirms causes of death of 4 who died in the January 6th Capitol riots. Now, see, I heard today, and it's so absurd, that the left is comparing this to Pearl Harbor and what happened in September. I can't say the whole thing because you guys obviously know the AI. But nonetheless here, we have Ashley Babbitt, 35, died from gunshot wound to her left shoulder. All right, so she's the one who actually died from a gunshot, from an actual involvement of a firearm. And she was unarmed, by the way. And then you have Rosanna Boylan, who died of an acute amphetamine intoxication. And then you have two of the other officers. You have Kevin Gearson, 55, died of hypersensitive atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. And then Benjamin Phillips, also 50, died of hypersensitive atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. And in case you're wondering what that is, it's just basically the buildup of fats and cholesterol and other substances in and on the arterial walls. And I'm an individual who, for most of my life, had diastolic dysfunction with myocardial ischemia, or exercise-induced myocardial ischemia. So these types of terms and language are very common to me. So in my situation, in simple context language, is that when my heart pumps, the left ventricle muscles are a bit stiff and doesn't allow for full relaxation. So when my heart is pumping, and if I'm out doing exercises, say like if I'm sprinting or doing something that requires kind of burst energy, my heart may not be able to function quite as well as, say, a relaxed condition there of the left ventricle. But it took a lot of work to find this article from Fox 23. I mean, I could not find this on Google. I had to go into DuckDuckGo and try to look for this, because you will not find this on Google. I mean, you can go to Google and try to look this up just out of curiosity if you want to try it. Fox 23 News, and then look up DC Medical Examiner. You might be able to find it that way by these specific terms. But I could not find this by other terms like Medical Examiner, Capitol Police, deaths. I could not find this information until I went to DuckDuckGo. So bookmark this article for yourself and keep this around. And then we have here, of course, the most talked about officer is Brian Sicknick, who died of natural causes. Medical Examiner rules. So U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick, who engaged with pro-Trump rioters during the January 6th insurrection, died of natural causes the day of the attack, Washington, D.C., Medical Examiner announced on Monday. Now, see, this is what got me into looking into the additional individuals by looking up the D.C. Medical Examiner's information. But when you do it on Google, all you come up with is mostly Brian Sicknick. Now, he's the object of this because, they were suggesting that he was the one hit by the fire extinguisher, but he wasn't. Now, there was an officer who was hit by a fire extinguisher, but that particular officer had on a helmet. So these are the misinterpretations and the contrived information and narratives that the left tries to push about these events, because, of course, they're not going to tell you the full truth because they have a narrative to drive. They want to impact people emotionally because we are emotional creatures, and that's what they mostly focus on instead of the rational and the evidence and obviously the proof of things. They would rather go for the emotional because they don't focus so much on evidence and proof or facts, because those can be against them, right? The reality of life can work against them. But if they focus on the nature of the charge, on the exaggeration and sensationalizing of things, well, then they can say whatever they want without any type of persecution, because they're just giving what would be known to a normal, rational person as an opinion. Now, if you want to talk about a threat to democracy, a threat to the institution of our voting system, then we need only go back to what I often refer to as Molly Ball's article from Time Magazine, The Secret History of the Shadow Campaign That Saved 2020 Election. So right there in the title, she couldn't help but grandstand about the fact that they actually influenced an election, that they actually interfered with an election. And you see here, she says right here, in a way, Trump was right. So here you have two different articles from the AP and from NBC that Trump was some loser complaining about having lost when the deck was actually stacked against him. Here it is. There was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes, one that both curtailed the protesters and coordinated the resistance from CEOs. Both surprises were the result of an informal alliance between left-wing activists and business titans. The pact was formalized in a terse, little-noticed joint statement of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and AFL-CIO published on Election Day. Both sides would come to see it as a sort of implicit bargain inspired by the summer's massive, sometimes destructive, racial justice protests in which the forces of labor came together with the forces of capital to keep the peace and oppose Trump's assault on democracy. And see, this is it right here in this paragraph. She sums it up. People had to come together, the left, the mainstream media, the tech giants, the corporatists, all had to come together and work together to interfere with an election. Here is your threat to democracy. Share this video, like, comment, let me know right here. Do you think that you're a dumb person who can't see these sorts of things? Am I now explaining to you some things that you may not have ever considered or thought about as a rational, cogent, normal human being who could not have figured out the fact that the left exaggerates and sensationalizes to promote a narrative and their agenda? So yes, I know I'm a bit hyped up today because this is absolutely ridiculous, absolutely absurd, the way Americans are treated, the way Americans, particularly Trump supporters, are constantly being castigated, constantly being demeaned, constantly being insulted. And you remember Hillary Clinton's deplorable statement. Now you have Joe Biden condemns lies of defeated former president as an attack on America's soul. Really? Because you remember the outrage when President Trump said that the media was the enemy of the people? They are. Well, I mean, within the context of them treating everyone like they're complete idiots, like people don't know what the hell's going on. But this is what I had for you guys today. Very intensive, very impactful, very voice raising, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you smash that like to tell the algorithm you want more common sense videos like this, and of course appearing there on the screen. That would be the channel icon for the YouTubes. You can click on that to subscribe, of course, as well as notifications to let you guys know when there's content here on the channel as we move into 2022. I want to thank all of you guys for your support, those on Rumble, Odyssey, and BitChute. Thank you so very much, and I will see you guys in the Friday vlog.